Hi, and welcome to another Excel demo with Rich Kerr. In this scenario, I've got a list of orders and information about those orders, like the date of the order, the customer, location of the customer, product, sales amount, and quantity. And I'd like to do some analysis on this data, but the twist is that we want to be able to indicate what season the order falls into. So, for example, that first order of November 8th should be listed as the fall season. So we want to create a couple of formulas that'll help us to do this easily so we can incorporate season into our analysis. To set this up, I've created a list of dates over in column L that indicate the starting date of each season throughout the year. Now, the reason why we're starting with January 1st is there are plenty of dates at the beginning of the year that are still in the winter season, which officially starts in the 21st of December. So we have a sort of an overlap where winter starts in December but flows over into the next year. So to make this work, what we're going to do is first calculate how many days away from the first of the year is a given date in this list. In other words, January 1st is 0 days away from January 1st. March 19th is something like 78 days away from January 1st. We want to compute that because we can then determine what date of the year or what day of the year are these dates. I can then figure out, well, what day of the year is November 8th or what day of the year is June 12th. I can then compare that to my list over here to determine what season it's in. That'll make a bit more sense as we flesh this out. So I'm going to create a column heading here that says day of year. We'll start with that. So I'm going to create a formula where I take the cell to the left and I'll subtract it, or I'll subtract from it the first of the year. Now, in the first instance, we simply get 0, right? We'll do January 1st minus January 1st, and we get 0 as the number of days that you've gone into the year so far with that date. Let's do that same formula below. We'll say again equals the date to the left minus the first of the year, right? So we'll say L3 minus 1/1/2020. And again, we get a value that initially is formatted as a date, but when we convert it to comma style, we can see that that's the 78th day of the year. Now I can simply drag this down, right? If I drag that down to the cells below, we can see that starting with the first of the year, we're only, we're 0 days into the year on the first. Come March 19th, we've now gone 78 days into the year. June 20th, 171. September 23rd, 266 days. And by December 21st, we're at the 355th day. Now, this is relevant when we add a column called season. So we'll add a season column here. And so what we want to say is that if you're on January 1st, you're in winter. And that's going to be the case until 78 days in, or March 19th, and that's when we hit spring. Okay, so March 19th, we're saying, is the start of spring. June 20th is the start of summer. And September 23rd is the start of fall. And then, of course, winter begins again on December 21st. So with this list, I can look at any of the dates over here, figure out how far into that particular year that is compared to this list, and determine the season. To simplify this process, I'm going to select this range of cells where we've got the day of year and the corresponding season, and I'm going to name that range of cells. We do that by coming over to the area called the name box, and I'll simply call it, we'll say, season start day. Season start date. So when you name a range, it makes it really easy to then incorporate that into any formula that you're going to use. So season start day is the name of this range that begins with these numeric values in M and includes the season. Well, we're we're getting there. So now I'm going to come into my data set here, and I'm going to insert a couple of columns. I'm going to highlight columns C and D, and I'll right click and choose insert. So now I want to know the day of the year for these orders. So we'll say day of year. It's going to kind of be a similar function. We're going to say equals this value minus, now here's what's a little bit different. Over in column N, I had 2020 listed as the date values I was using to calculate how far into the year. But these orders didn't all happen in 2020. They happen in different years. So what we want to do is take the exact order date and subtract from it the first of that year. In other words, if my order date is November 8th of 2016, I want to subtract from it January 1st of 2016. So I can't subtract, say, from January 1st of any other year. It won't make sense. It's got to be that same year. So we are going to use the date function to construct a date value that corresponds to that year. So with the date function, the year would be the year of that date. So if I say year of B2, in this instance, that means 2016. Comma, the month that I want to use is January, so 1. And then comma, the day I want to use is 1, the 1st of January. So what we have here is B2, which is November 8th of 2016, minus January 1st of 2016. We hit our enter key, and of course it formats the result as a date initially, but again we'll change that to comma style, and I will decrease the number of decimals. So November 8th of 2016 is day 312 of that year. And I'll simply double click to fill that down so we get the day of the year for each of these dates. No matter what year it's in, we're subtracting in this case January 1st of 2014 from June 9 of 2014. Now we're just about done with this. Now in column D, I'm going to do season. Okay. Now this part is super easy. We're going to use the Vlookup function. So we'll say equals Vlookup, open paren. In fact, I'm going to widen my column a little bit just to make it easier to see the construction of this formula. So we'll say equals Vlookup. And the lookup value is this day of year value, in this case 312, comma, and the table array is this range over here that we constructed, right? We set up this range called season start day, right? So season start day is that range of cells, comma, column index number is 2. So if you've never done the Vlookup function, what you're telling Vlookup to do is take this 312 and find where it falls in the leftmost column of this little table of 2 columns, right? We're not including the date column in our named range called season start day. So once there's a couple ways to do the Vlookup. We're going to say comma true because this is an approximate match. In other words, it's not going to find the number 312 exactly. But what it will find is the largest value that doesn't exceed 312, which is 266. And that means fall. So November 8th is still part of the fall. Now, depending on what part of the world you live in, you may not agree with these dates as the division of the season. I'm in Chicago, and sometimes it feels like it's still winter in April or May. But the official dates are what we're using here. When you're doing a Vlookup function, if you use false here, that means you're looking for an exact match, and I'd have to have every possible day of year listed in my table. I'd have 365 entries with every possible day from 1 through 365, and then marking them as winter, spring, summer, or fall. But by doing the approximate match, which is with the true parameter, I only need those entries where the seasons fall in the year. So we hit our enter key and we can see that November 8th is indeed in the fall. And I can fill that down and we get the correct season for each one of those dates. And there you go. So you now have the ability to incorporate seasons into whatever analysis you decide to do. I mean, if we wanted to carry this a step further, we could now simply go to Insert and do a pivot table. And so now that I have a season column in my data, I could drop season into my pivot table. And there we have it, fall, spring, summer, winter. And of course, it's doing it alphabetically, right? That's the sort of default sort there. And then I'll throw in, say, my product names. And then I'll put in, say, my sales. And I now know what the sales were for those products in each of the seasons. Okay? Maybe to make this a little bit more compact, I'll take the season entry and drag it into the columns area. So now we know how these products did across each one of these seasons, and you can go forward with your analysis. So I hope you guys found this useful. Please tune back in soon for more product demos and Excel demos with Rich Kerr. Have a productive day.